Hi everybody! In this video, I'm going to be going through the notes for lesson 2.6. The goal of today's lesson is to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. So rather than making the graph of a line, I'm going to give you information about a line and ask you to create the equation. In order to do that, we need to identify the numbers that go in the equation. In slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, there are two key numbers that we need to figure out before we can write the equation. The first number is the m, and the second number is the b. Let's talk about the m first. Remember, m is always slope. So in order to figure out the number for the equation that goes in the m spot, we're going to need to figure out the slope of the line. The way you do that depends on the information you have. If you have a graph, then to find the slope of a line, you're going to look at the rise over the run. But if you have a table, then to find the slope of the line, you're going to find the y pattern and then divide by the x pattern. In order to find the b, we need to remember that the b is always the y-intercept. Again, the way that you find the b changes depending on the given information. So if you have a graph, you are always going to look for the place on the graph where the line crosses the y-axis, which is this axis right here. If you have a table, then you are always going to look for the place in the table where the x value is 0, because the y-intercept always has an x value of 0, and whatever number is in this spot is the b. One thing you should remember is that no matter what, in a point for a y-intercept, the x is always 0 and the y value is always the b. Once you have those two numbers, you just put them into the equation to make it y equals mx plus b. Let's try that. So in problem number 1, I'm telling you that the m is -2 and the b is 9. From that information, we can identify our key features. Our key features would be the m, which is -2, and the y-intercept, which is the point 0, 9. Because the b is always the y value. Then we're going to write our equation, y equals mx plus b. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in my m number and my b number. So my new equation will say y equals, and then instead of m, I'm going to write -2, x, and then instead of b, I'm going to write +9. I'm just filling in those numbers that I found in the equation that I'm going to use. Let's try that again. So I'm giving you a table here. Again, we need to find the slope and we need to find the y-intercept. Now to find my slope, I need to look at the pattern. The y pattern is +8 and the x pattern is +2. So my slope will be the y pattern divided by the x pattern. If I type that into my calculator, it does simplify and it just makes 4. The y-intercept is going to be the point where the x is 0 and the y is a number. In this table, that's the middle row. So my b is 8. Now I'm going to make my equation. Y equals m, which I just figured out is 4, x plus b, so my b is 8. Let's look at an example that has a graph. Again, we're going to need to find the slope and the y-intercept. My slope I can find by identifying a few nice points on the graph and counting the rise and the run. This graph I need to move down 2 spaces and right 3 spaces between points. So my rise would be -2 and my run would be 3. The y-intercept is going to be the point that is on the y-axis. So that would be right here. The y-intercept is 5, so my b is 5. That means that my equation will say y equals m, which is -2/3, it's my slope, x plus b, which is 5. Last but not least, if I have these 2 points, in order to find the slope, I'm going to make a little mini table. I'm going to fill in my points and then identify my key features, which are my slope and my y-intercept. Again, to find my slope, I'm going to look at the patterns in the table. On the y column, I'm going down by 4, and on the x column, I'm going down by 6. So my slope would be -4 divided by -6, which simplifies on my calculator to 2/3. The y-intercept is the place where x is 0. So that would be right here, and my b is 3. Then I'm going to write my equation. Y equals m, which is 2/3, x plus my b, which is 3. Let's try one last example. I'm giving you a graph here that is showing us the hours that have passed and the height in feet. In order to write the equation, I need to identify the key features. So I'm going to need to find the slope and the y-intercept. To find the slope, I'm going to find a few nice points on the graph. Then I'm going to count the rise and the run. I need to go up 4 spaces and to the right 5 spaces to move between points here. So my slope would be 4/5. My y-intercept is going to be 0 for my x, and it's going to be the place where the graph crosses the y-axis, so 1. My equation is y equals mx, so 4/5x, plus b, so plus 1. Now we're going to use the equation to find some values. So the next part of this problem says use the equation to find the height at hour 35. Now in this graph, the hours are the x numbers. So all I'm asking you to do here is to take an x number and plug it into the equation. I'm going to write y equals 4/5, and then instead of the x, I'm going to plug in the number 35, plus 1. Now, using my calculator, I'm going to type that in, and I'm going to get 29. But the key here is 29 what? Well, the hour is 35. The height is in feet. So I'm going to say 29 feet. Let's try that one more time. Use the equation to find the height at hour 20. So I'm telling you to use the equation to get the height at hour 20. Now again, hours are the x's in this problem, so I'm just going to replace the x in the equation with the number 20. Y equals 4 over 5, and then parentheses 20 plus 1. On my calculator, I'm going to get 17, and I'm measuring that in feet. As a quick review, earlier in this chapter, we learned how to interpret. In this problem, the y-intercept was 0, 1, where 0 is the hours and 1 is the feet. So to interpret that, we would say after 0 hours, the height was 1 foot. And again, the slope, which we already found, was 4 over 5. The rise, which is the feet on the graph, and the run, which is the hours on the graph. So to interpret that, we would say 4 more feet every 5 hours. That's it for today's lesson. Thank you so much for watching. Start your practice.